Hello, I've decided to start this channel to commemorate the things I am learning in my sophomore year at Stanford because I have just been sort of blown away by all of the cool things about design and the thought that goes into design processes in the first 2 weeks of this quarter. And I want to keep them here so that I never forget. So for episode 1, I want to talk about this project where I had to take a wooden block and hold it in my hands. And there's this interesting concept about affordances. So every kind of object in the world that is physically manufactured has kind of affordances that it grants to us as users of the object and kind of influences how we interact with them. So when you create an object, like a chair for example, you're not just creating a chair, you're influencing the way that a person actually moves through the world. For example, when you create a chair, like the one I'm sitting on here at my desk, right? You don't just create this object and it goes into the world and exists as a chair. You create an object that allows people to do different things. For example, to hang their coat on the back of the chair. So you create this action within people in society. You also create the action of sitting and rolling. And so the thing is that when you make objects, you can't just be thinking about how they look. You have to be thinking about the way they change people's actions and behaviors. So, for example, a block of wood. If it was just a block of wood, it wouldn't necessarily give your hands the affordances of being able to feel kind of at ease and supported by the form of the wood itself. So anyways, I have to take this block and I have to sand it down at the lab in a way that purely responds to how my hands interact with the object. So I can't let my mind tell me what I think my hands want to do with this block, and instead I have to think like, you know, I wish this was smoother, I wish this was indented, and then create that physically. Anyways, that kind of got me thinking about how we perceive different spaces in the world as places where we feel comfortable and that we belong. And so, yeah, it just kind of added to that. I learned about the frequencies of electromagnetic radiation and how when we, for example, blast off from Earth and we kind of are no longer connected to the frequencies that we have access to on our planet, we feel different. We're no longer oriented to the like molecular biology of Earth, and that's why we're not able to survive in space for very long. And it kind of connects to jet lag, like when you move to a new place, you travel to a new place, maybe your cells aren't yet aligned, and that causes you to feel like a lack of place. It makes me think about the kind of subconscious ways in which we kind of perceive the spaces we're in, that goes beyond what we can see and kind of recognize rationally. It makes me think that when we design, we have to think that there are so many sensory experiences that contribute to the ways that make us feel included in a room. It's like when you go to a big city, you biologically feel different than you do in the countryside. And why is that? Maybe that's because there's a different pull within us to feel a certain way. And so I guess just to come back to this block, I think a big part of design is realizing that we inherently as human beings react to our surroundings in ways in which our mind is not working fast enough to even be able to fully perceive. And so as designers, it's kind of our responsibility to be taking that into account at every moment, that the things that we design actually can biologically affect the way that people feel. I think that's beautiful, and I think that's really important. And that's something that I have been thinking about a lot today. So if you have any thoughts about kind of other examples of kind of design choices that affect our psychological and physiological needs, please let me know. One that just came to mind as well was kind of this idea of hostile architecture, and how sometimes we will, the city will put in like metal stoppers on different smooth surfaces to prevent skateboarders from skateboarding in certain areas of cities, and kind of how that implicitly means that, you know, there will be less of that kind of a culture in certain areas, as skaters are, you know, systemically excluded from those areas, or putting in handles on benches in parks, so that people cannot sleep on those benches. How those almost incomprehensible, not incomprehensible, but imperceptible cues in the ways in which we design change internal biology, psychological behaviors, and then ultimately entire cultural shifts, right? Because, you know, going back to the chair, it affects how I sit in this chair, how comfortable I feel if I can put my jacket down. But on a wider sense, if homeless people have no place to sleep that is safe in a park, it creates areas of our city that are more segregated than ever. So I guess my challenge of the week for myself, and maybe even for you guys, a little bit new to YouTube, would be to think about how we can be designing thoughtfully enough at a human, like a singular human experience level, and then at a large-scale societal level, so that people feel included, or at least that the spaces they're interacting with were designed with their best experience at the heart of every decision. So anyways, thank you, and I will see you very soon when I learn something else inevitably interesting.